Okay, good afternoon and happy Asian Pacific Heritage Month, Older Americans Month, Jewish American Heritage Month, Haitian Heritage Month, and Mental Health Month. Welcome to this month's Emory Community Conversation, an interfaith dialogue on community. Before we begin, I would like to share our land acknowledgement that was developed by faculty from the Native American and Indigenous Student Initiative Committee through consultation with leading historians of this region. The space that I'm physically sitting in, Douglasville, Georgia, and Emory University is located on Muskogee Creek land. Emory was founded in 1836 during a period of sustained oppression, land dispossession, and forced removal of Muskogee Creek and Cherokee peoples from Georgia and the Southeast. Emory owes an immense debt to the Muskogee, Cherokee, and other original peoples and their descendants who have cared for and inhabited these lands. If you are interested in seeing our full land acknowledgement, I will share that in the chat a bit later. But my name is Marche Simpson, and I am the Director of Diversity and Inclusion for Alumni Engagement within Emory Alumni Association. Within Emory Alumni Association, we are working to engage our community by not only the year students become alumni or chosen career field or industry, but also individual identity, including race, ethnicity, nationality, gender, sexuality, religion, and all your intersections. Two pieces of housekeeping to note: this presentation is being recorded and will be shared with everyone who registered. Second, please type your questions in the Q&A section of this platform, and we will get to as many as possible. This is a conversation, so please feel free to provide your questions or to share your questions as they come, and we will answer them as they come through. For increased comfort, you have the ability to also ask your questions anonymously. Emory Community Conversations centers on dimensions and intersections of identity. This series serves as a foundation for individuals in the Emory community seeking knowledge and/or looking to explore identity and its connection to racial justice, social justice, and human rights. You'll find recordings to our past conversations on the Emory Collective at emorycollective.com. Today, we are joined by alumni who were members of Interreligious Council, IRC, during their time at Emory. For those who are unfamiliar, IRC is an undergraduate interfaith leadership group on Emory's Atlanta campus that cultivates interreligious literacy, dialogue, understanding, and engagement. The IRC is composed of representatives nominated by the approximately 25 undergraduate religious and philosophical organizations on the Atlanta campus, plus a select number of at-large members. And the group meets weekly to build relationships, dialogue together, and provide input and leadership for interfaith engagement at Emory. So allow me to introduce our guest. Dr. Isam Vald is an active Emory University alumnus. He is a graduate of Oxford College, 1993, Emory College of Arts and Sciences, 1995, and Rollins School of Public Health, 1999. Isam has been a devoted community builder and has been instrumental in nurturing the vibrant Muslim community at Emory. As a student, he was an engaged member of the Emory Interreligious Council, and as an alumnus, he is committed to support and advise the IRC. He has been engaged in interfaith conversations in a variety of settings for some time and is also a practitioner of public health. Dr. Vald enjoys living at the intersection of faith communities, public health, and religion. Thank you, Dr. Vald, for joining us. Barrett Reznor Guidodi, I totally apologize if I butchered your name, is a proud graduate of the College of Arts and Sciences 2015. She has a master's in theological studies and moral theology from the University of Notre Dame 2020, and is beginning a PhD in Christian ethics at Boston College in the fall. Barrett's academic pursuits are deeply informed by her professional background in business management consulting and the technology and manufacturing industries. Barrett is passionate about the future of technology and technology ethics, especially how emerging technologies impact everyday life around the world and allow us to re-articulate and amplify problematic social norms. Baird was a Roman Catholic representative for the Interreligious Council, and her experience with the IRC community continues to inform her theological and professional pursuits. Barrett, thank you so much for joining us today. Ngawang Norbu was born to a Tibetan refugee family in India. He received the prestigious Tenzin Gyatso Scholarship to study science in Emory University from 2010-2013 as one of the first monastics. He joined the Interreligious Council as the Buddhist representative and participated in weekly sessions, spring break programs, and other conferences. Ngawang and a Chinese student and other monastics started the student charter China-Tibet Initiative at Emory University that initiates dialogue between Tibetan and Chinese students. Ngawang, thank you so much for joining us, especially knowing that it is 10 p.m. your time. So thank you for making time for us today.
Thank you.
And then Davis Husk graduated from Emory College in May 2019. A highly engaged student, Davis served as orientation leader, an academic coach, and an active member of 2 academic fellowship cohorts. David was the proud student of political science and religion and enjoyed leading his peers as president of Emory's Pi Sigma Alpha National Honor Society. Davis has dedicated his entire undergraduate career working on the exhibition team at Emory Libraries, where he expanded student engagement initiatives to reach across campus. Recognizing Davis's ability in building strong relationships with the student and collaborative partners across campus, he was offered and served as the intern in the Campus and Community Relations Department of Emory Libraries post-graduation. During that internship with CCR, Davis focused his efforts on student accessibility, enhancing the student engagement and interactive elements of the library's exhibition programs, and researching and developing a pathway for the future success of the Emory Library Student Ambassador Program, a program that Davis co-founded and launched while a student. Again, thank you all for joining us for this conversation and being present. And Davis, I will turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Marche. And thank you, Barrett and Ngawang and Isam, for making the time to be here today. It is a delight to be speaking with you and to be entering this virtual space. I feel that the only thing that's missing is a good weekly IRC meal, perhaps from Saba, not a sponsor, but we would. I would love to be breaking bread with you, but this is definitely a delight to be with you. So. In the tradition of IRC, I would love to have a welcome prompt for us to check in and for our guests to see you personally. So Isam, would you start us off in sharing your name, your faith and religion, and what you're bringing into the virtual space today?
I am Isam. I am Muslim. And what I'm bringing in today is the excitement of seeing fellow IRC alums and the joys I see on their faces. So that is what I will share today as to what I'm bringing in.
Thank you so much. Barrett.
Yeah, so I'm Barrett. I identify with the Roman Catholic tradition, and I am just like Isam, I'm excited. I haven't had the opportunity to see either Isam or Ngawang for many years, but also that the Alumni Association is open to facilitating conversations related to interfaith dialogue and the way that our religious traditions are articulated in our lives, both on campus and then in our postgraduate time as well.
Thank you, Barrett. Thank you. And Ngawang.
I'm Ngawang. As I has been introduced, I am in India right now, and I am from a Buddhist religion. I follow Buddhist religion. I represented Tibetan Buddhist tradition. And what I'm going to bring to this virtual conversation is that my experience at Emory, and particularly with the IRC team, and how it gave me opportunity to grow leaving the campus. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So let's get started with this conversation. So when you were here at Emory, I know the Interreligious Council brought leaders from various religious and philosophical organizations and communities together in a way that really may not have happened otherwise. And Isam, you certainly have been a facilitator of so much of IRC's work as a campus leader, especially in my experience and time at Emory. So I'd love to open this question to all of you panelists and say, in your own words, what do you see as the value of interreligious dialogue, especially given our current age of polarization? So Barrett, would you mind starting us off with this question?
Absolutely. Absolutely, I agree that we're living in a time of increased polarization. Like you, Davis, I actually double majored in political science and religious studies. And at Emory, we talked a lot in the political science department about political polarization. And I think oftentimes the way that religion is portrayed is as a polarizing force, as opposed to a unifying force, or a force that allows us to understand more deeply the people we're in relationship with. I also can say from the American context that as people identify less and less with a religious tradition, understanding of religious traditions also decreases. So I think that interreligious dialogue offers something really unique in bringing people with different traditions to the table to share what kinds of things guide their daily life and guide the kind of hopes and dreams and desires that they have for their families and for their communities, because I think religion oftentimes informs all of those different things. But I also think that interreligious dialogue serves as a very powerful example of what we can do in communities when people with different commitments come to the table and can build a shared vision. And I think that that's something that's really true, or was really true at the IRC, is, we'd pick a topic, at least when I was there, we'd pick a topic and we kind of talk about it from all of these different perspectives. And I would get to learn about what my Jewish sisters and brothers thought, or my Muslim sisters and brothers thought about that particular thing. And we could find so many shared ideas or shared hopes. And the things that were different brought a lot of really cool and interesting conversation to the table about, oh, well, maybe that's something my tradition I can think about more deeply in my tradition. So yeah, I think there's a lot of fruits. I hope that maybe prompts some other ideas for Isam or Ngawang to contribute to in your question there.
Absolutely. Thank you. Yeah, I really admired too that these kind of conversations drive us, as you said, to consider our fellow peers and of other religious traditions as brothers and sisters. I think it is a unifying force that brings us together. Ngawang, I'm curious, what is, in your words, how would you define the value of interreligious dialogue?
Yes, as I totally agree with Barrett. It has been amazing journey, amazing experiences that I had at Emory, because I'm not a normal undergraduate student at Emory. When I was there, like I have never been to other modern educational institute as a student. I was raised as a monk. I joined monastery very young, and so although I read some other ideas or beliefs of different religion, but it's the little knowledge I had is basically from the books that I read or listened to some talks. That's all I had. But when you get to interact with the actual practitioners, those who follow the religion, fully committed with their faith, it's a totally different experiences. So I got to learn lots of new things from different religion. as Barrett said, when we discuss about a particular topic, and not only learn from other religion, but also it enriches my own religion, tradition, religious faith that I'm following, because most of the time we focus on some particular area. And then one example that I can give is about, I remember one time we discussed about marriage. And I was supposed to share from Buddhist perspective. I did a small research, although very not very long, but and then I asked some Buddhist scholars about the rituals that is involved in the Tibetan Buddhist marriage ceremony. I found out that there's nothing. So that's amazed me. And then that actually helped me to understand my religion, the purpose of my religion more. So that sort of a things, experience that I can share. And also, of course, as you, at the beginning, you said that, Monday is, although I'm a monk, weekends are weekends, right? So most of the time, Mondays is somewhat like, you have a dull feeling. But because of this, that IRC is meeting every Monday evening, it's always excited me, like, to have a lively conversation, not only lively conversation, amazing food. So yeah, those are the experiences that I can, that remain in my mind all the time. Yeah. That's what my experience.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for sharing that. And I really like what you say about how it enriches our own tradition. I think we do tend to learn more about ourselves when we learn about others. Isam, I'm really curious, as especially as a very active facilitator of this work, how you would define the value of interreligious dialogue.
So dialogue certainly has an element of being sustained over time. And I think that is one of the hallmarks of the Interreligious Council at Emory. So being in a space, around food, having those conversations weekly and building those relationships and building that trust, where we can have these deeper understandings of our own religious tradition and also learn from our peers about their religious traditions. That certainly has the element of, at the very minimal, interreligious literacy, but it also builds a model for lifelong relationships and the lifelong, practicing or becoming a practitioner of this wherever we are in our lives and in our careers, or whatever communities we might be in. So it has all these layers, and you can just see right on this virtual screen that many of us have not spoken in years, but we share a common experience, and we're able to talk about it with such joy and such excitement. So that will be my intro into this question.
Wonderful, wonderful. Thanks. Thank you so much. And excited to hear certainly how this our shared understanding of this value and how it's played out, especially as we left campus. But I'm gonna guide us through. My questions right now are still focused on Emory, and then I'll get to what that's been like, certainly in your post-grad lives. So Isam and Barrett, I have a question for you, and Ngawang, a follow-up that will be slightly altered. Many students I've spoken with, peers, many of my friends, they described this sort of anxiety of leaving what their religious community was and their interreligious community at Emory. This feeling of whether they take a new position or return to further postgraduate studies, that there's an anxiety in having to start anew, in a sense, right, of plugging into what religious community looks like in the next phase of your life. I'm just curious, Isam and Barrett, was that a struggle for you? And if so, what was one way that you overcame it and perhaps looked for opportunities, be it in your own religious traditions or in some sort of interfaith spaces?
I'll start by speaking to that. So after graduating, I returned back to the region I grew up in, and actually to the same parish, the same church community that I had grown up in. And it was amazing the kind of things that I had learned at Emory and the way that my own identification with the tradition had grown and changed, and how re-encountering that same community was such a gift for me, because they were many of the people that I'd grown up with, and I felt like I was bringing more to the table in those conversations with others. And I noticed new things about that community. So I remember, not that long after graduating, walking after Mass on a Sunday, walking out and stopping because there was a plaque on the wall that I literally never noticed before, that was a letter from 1975 that was a joint statement between my parish and the Episcopal parish down the street, that was oh, here's our shared vision for what, the Christian community in Everett, Washington can offer to our larger community. And I don't know why I'd never noticed that before, but I could understand much better the sense that kind of, I guess that's more ecumenical dialogue, but even that sense that interreligious dialogue and communication can really have in building a shared vision in the future. So I had the gift of returning to a community, having changed some and being able to contribute some new things. But it was really important for me to continue exploring my tradition deeply after I left Emory. So that's part of why I decided to pursue my master's in theological studies and my continued doctoral work. This is not something that's going away for me, for better or for worse. Even though I've had lots of other professional experiences that I bring into my theological inquiry. So that's kind of what I think about. But I've never found an interreligious community like IRC in the non-Emory space. I miss it. I hope for it. The humility that it taught me is something I bring to a lot of conversations now, but it was definitely a precious gift for me.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that. And Isam, I'm curious, you are thoroughly an Atlanta person. What was that like, transitioning into graduation and now being someone who works here and is extremely plugged into the community?
I think all of us can say that the Interreligious Council at Emory left an indelible mark on us, and it has shaped us in ways that we have imagined and the ways that we have not imagined, and given us some skill set. So there are many levels of interreligious engagement. For example, from just being in the same space and doing something together, say like a service project, from being in the workspace with colleagues, to being in a space with food and the same people over and over again over a long period of time. You will notice that IRCers who've been in the Interreligious Council for 2 years or more have drastically had a different experience than folks that have been into Interreligious Council for 1 year or less, in ways that we can elaborate perhaps at other times. But for me, wherever I have gone, my journey has been in Atlanta, but my journey also took me to Birmingham, Alabama, for some years. And it was very easy for me to call on what I had learned and all the great experiences that we had on the Interreligious Council to help shape, interreligious conversation and sometimes dialogue, which is sustained based on that model. And some of the attributes of the Interreligious Council, beyond just discussing any topic on any given day, has been the long-term skill set that we develop for conversation. And of course, we do all share a lot of commonalities, but venturing into difficult conversation has been also a hallmark of the Interreligious Council. How do we discuss differences respectfully? How do we engage each other in ways that honor each other's traditions? So those are things that I've certainly been able to employ in the different environments that I have been in. And there's almost like a need to engage in learning about our communities and our societies wherever we might be. And so the Interreligious Council sort of plants this seed within us that we want to germinate wherever we might be. So I think that is an absolutely fantastic long-term piece that the Interreligious Council imparts. And I can also say, as an alum and having pursued a graduate degree at Emory, remaining connected to the Interreligious Council was an important piece. And to that, I'll share an update that our current champion of a religious spiritual life, Reverend Dr. Gregory McGonigal, has really anchored a graduate version of the Interreligious Council, as well with collaboration with the graduate students as well. So those pieces are important, and how amazing this journey has been that as an alum that I have had an opportunity to engage in all of your journeys in the Interreligious Council, Ngawang and Barrett and Davis. So that's what comes to mind at this time.
Wonderful, thank you. It does seem to be that piece of sustained community, right, is essential, and it is true that we bring that with us wherever we go. Ngawang, I know that your experience is much different, right? Where you were away from your spiritual community while at Emory, right, with just a few of your close companions and fellow colleagues. I'm curious, what was it like for you to then return to the monastery with this experience, and how had your experiences at Emory in IRC changed you when you went back?
Yes, it's true that I was far from my community. Not only community, almost it's the place itself where I grew up, or most part of my life before coming to Emory. So it has been a little bit challenging at the beginning, mostly because just before we graduate, we have a farewell party. At that time, I wrote a short poem. So in that poem, I mentioned that sort of a feeling that we are the raised up as a traditional community. So the technology is not that much used in our community at that time. I am new to most of these technologies settings, and then so I had some sort of a feeling like that when I was there initially, somewhat like I was brought from 14th century directly to 21st century. So you saw people in the campus working, that the pace of walking is different, and the way of greetings are different. When you encounter a person you know in the campus, he will raise his hand and say hi, and then we have that sort of. When we meet someone, we just stop and then start to talk, but there's no time for that sort of a conversation. So there are so many experiences there, and then beside that, we face lots of different questions because we are in the campus in this monks' robes. So there are lots of students are curious to know why we are there. So yeah, that's sort of a experience that I've been through. But overall, I think those experience has taught me a lot. And fortunately, the Emory campus itself is the people I met in the Emory campus are very friendly. I'm not trying to be nice. This is what I had experienced. All the faculties, staffs, students, and the people who are like shuttle drivers. So everybody's are very friendly and nice to us. So we had amazing experiences. And of course, as I mentioned earlier, my experience with Interreligious Council opened me up for the think broadly and then see the differences, as well as try to focus more on similarities. So this sort of experience that when I return, as Barrett said, that I have accumulated lots of different insights, experiences. I have plenty to share to my community who are like somewhat like close to, who doesn't have that sort of exposure. So that sort of experience. So most of the time when I have an opportunity, I always share my experience with interacting with the Emory, different, not only Interreligious Council, but also other student groups. So yeah, this gave me an opportunity to think holistically. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thanks so much for sharing that, and for speaking to the fact, right, that we bring it with us. We are these seeds, because I really believe that was something I took away from my experiences at Emory, that we are planting seeds in ourselves to then blossom somewhere else, and to share those experiences with our new communities, right? So, well, you've graduated, right? You've left Emory, and now each of you are working in very different spaces, right? The government, a nonprofit, and of course a monastery. Isam, I'd like to start with you. Have you witnessed ways in which your organization has been inclusive of your faith, and or how your faith has potentially given you a sense of belonging within your day to day?
Could you elaborate on the question just a little bit more?
Absolutely. So I'm thinking, right, you're all coming from very different experiences, right? Barrett, nonprofit, Ngawang is in a monastery, and you're working in the government, and of course in higher education. In your work and in your current field, how have you felt? How have you felt that your faith has either given you a sense of belonging in your work, or it carried with you a certain perspectives to engage even more deeply, perhaps, in your current work?
So for me, the journey has been very, very interesting. As was said in my introduction, I've been able to, land on the intersection of public health, religion, and faith communities. And what a fantastic journey it has been. And this time of pandemic really brings all of that to the fore when we think about vaccine COVID-19 vaccines, vaccine hesitancy, and just how faith communities can be helpful in getting us to a point where our society is safe and can return to normal activities as well. So whether it has been on the public health side or the religious life side, those are two passions of mine. And I've been able to engage both of those passions, with a lot of enthusiasm. And interreligious council certainly allows me to be more, the interreligious council experience allows me to be more fluid in all of the spaces that I have been in. So some of the religious life work is focusing on how religious communities can understand and engage a vaccine hesitancy, but that's also going on simultaneously in the public health world as well, where how do public health communities partner with faith communities to address the issues at hand. And this pandemic would not be the first time these fields have come together. There are a lot of amazing stories about how faith communities rallied at the time of the Ebola epidemic in West Africa as well. And just recently I heard a wonderful success story in another part of West Africa, which I'm requesting a case study be written on. So when we have a consent, I might be able to share that. It is such a fantastic thing to be able to connect both these areas professionally as well. So I will stop there.
Thank you, Isam. In Ngawang, in your monastery, right? What is it like? Can you share with us and what it's like to be interacting and living out your spirituality on such a personal level, right? Every day. Can you say more to that?
Yes, of course. The daily routine in the monastery is somewhat like fixed. So since I joined monastery very young, so we had that sort of a daily routine, like you get up at 5:30 and then your breakfast is served at the prayer gathering. And then before pandemic, I'm talking about before pandemic. So for the past 1 year, we don't have that sort of a huge gathering, and then you have your morning prayer. Since I was student at that time, you have to study scriptures, philosophical texts, memorize. So that sort of things are there. One thing that struck me when I was at Emory, mainly because as I mentioned earlier, that we are only 6 monastic at that time, and then we were the first cohort. So we were somewhat like if I may say so, like somewhat like a celebrities in the campus. So we get emails from students, those who want to meet us privately to ask questions about our lifestyle, and then most of the time we have no idea. Being in a Tibetan community, we have no idea that we are like very prone to smile, like we are always smiling. I don't know, maybe that's what the students said, those students said. So one time I got an email from a student, and then we decided to meet at the Claremont campus. I'm not sure Claremont campus still exists or not, but we had a session there, and then she brought with her her friend, and then we discussed, we started talking, and then the main question was that why you are always smiling? That was the main question, and I didn't have answer at that moment. And then when I went back to my apartment, my room, and then I started to think why, I am always smiling, why. And then I found out that, it's the simple lifestyle that I'm living as a monk, because I, being in a Emory campus, although, the students are nice and friendly, but they have lots of issues. Financial issues is a huge burden that they have to, they have the loan to pay back. So, and then these are one thing, and then they have to catch up with their studies, and then there's a peers pressure there, like, they have to, party, so many things. And I learned about this. There are some certain terms that if it is okay to use here, like a beer pong. So many things. The funny things. We monks are not allowed to drink. So, and then we monks have this sort of monastic robes. Like we don't have to follow any fashion trends. So you can wear the same robe. Not only 1 year, but 2, 3, 4 years. At that time, when I was having a session with that student, those two students, the robe I was wearing was, I think, 3 years old. So I found out that the living a simple life and having some sort of a content is, I think, the main important. For having a joyful life. So that's how I saw the value of monastic life. That's how when I return, I share with my fellow monks that our lifestyle itself is although we are not putting extra effort to practice. This is some sort of a routine that we are following without any effort, but this sort of a lifestyle itself give us lots of satisfactions and lots of joyfulness. So yeah, this sort of experience that I came across and observed, got to share. So which encouraged me to live more simpler life, get less lured by this, advertising companies. So yeah, that's the fortunate thing that being a monk, I can. But I'm not saying that everybody can live that sort of a life. But that's what I learned. That's what I want to share here. Yeah,
I really appreciate you sharing that, because I think some of the things you've spoken to are, I speak on, I know on behalf of many that we have learned from you and from your fellow colleagues and companions. There's much to be learned, and how we can apply it in our own practices as well. So really, thank you for sharing that. Well, Barrett, I want to turn to you. I know you previously worked some in a corporate setting, I believe as a consultant that you shared after graduation, and certainly now as a nonprofit. It's really seemed to allow you to incorporate your belief and research on Christian ethics and I believe the ethics behind technology. I'm thinking, what has been different about those experiences, those two, right? First as a consultant and then now stepping into the nonprofit world. And what did it look like to embrace your religious practices and potentially, albeit perhaps few, but interfaith practices as well in either of those experiences?
That's a great question. So Reflecting on my time as a consultant, I was not planning on going into the corporate world after graduation. And it was there by a series of what I would consider providential events. It became clear that that's where I was supposed to be. And I want to validate something that Ngawang said, in that he believes that, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but you said something like, there's a particular satisfaction that's gained in the expression of your monastic life, of your spiritual life, and in the tradition and the ways that informs how you see the world. And I would say that was absolutely the case for me, that I brought particular commitments to my work. That's true. That was true as a business management consultant, and it's true in the work I'm doing now. And those commitments maybe were expressed differently given the different environments. So something that was shared between my two experiences, or these two professional experiences that I've had, were, I believe that it's my responsibility as a Christian and as a practitioner of the Roman Catholic tradition to have a sense of critical respect for my tradition. So critical in the sense that I'm willing to ask questions and push buttons to a certain extent, where I think that maybe we haven't done enough of the work as a community to fully express what we believe, or how we desire to live in relationship with one another. So critical in that sense, and respectful in that it's hard to be in community, regardless of what kind of community we're in. And it desires a basis of respect that we bring to the relationships that we have with others. So if you can take the idea of critical respect and you translate that into a professional environment, I think something that I was able to bring to my work as a consultant was really asking a lot of questions that other people might not ask, about especially the ways that we were thinking about what it means to be human. Because if I was sitting there working on a project that was about a healthcare device, for example, healthcare devices impact how people live, how people see themselves, how they articulate relationships with others. And that's not really a common thing that is regularly brought into the conversation when you're developing a new technology. And so that's actually what drove me asking those questions in that professional environment, and seeing the desire people had for a deeper satisfaction in thinking about those things as we're doing our work, led me to do my master's. And I was like, okay, great, I'm going to get my master's and I'll be able to have some answers. I can go back and do more of that. And 2 years wasn't enough, which is good and also sad, because the doctorate's 5 years and, I'm just going to go on and on. But I think that in my following my master's, I said, okay, I have more of the framework, more of the ideas here. I've got this position of hopefully critical respect and helping people think in some of these ways. And in the nonprofit environment I'm working in, I'm actually working with an entirely new audience. So I was working in the tech industry before my master's. Now I'm working primarily with manufacturers in like a Rust Belt community. And their problems and the people who work in manufacturing settings have entirely different questions, concerns, desires than maybe the developers who are creating technologies, because a lot of the workers on a plant floor are actually going to be on the receiving end of the consequences of these technologies. So when we're automating all of our production processes, what does that mean for the people who will no longer be employed? So for me, that integration of what it means to really critically examine and bring a sense of, I want to know what it means to be human, that's informed by my religious tradition. And I think that probably informs everything in life. Means that I'm going to continue asking those questions in the professional environment. And I think it offers hope to people, because a lot of the people I encounter have a desire to ask these questions, or when I ask them the question, they go, oh, wow, I've never thought of that. I wish someone had talked about this in my undergraduate curriculum when I was being taught how to code. Why are we not talking about developer ethics or anything like that? And yeah, so I think that answers your question, Sam, about the way that I've just brought this perspective to my professional work and how it all kind of ties together. One thing I do want to note is most manufacturers I've encountered after I completed my master's really had no idea why I was there, because my degree's in theology. They're like, why are you here? Like, what, you appear to have some consulting background, then you did theology. Are you one holistic whole person? And so you actually have to build trust with people who might not trust that you're coming into their world, willing to listen, willing to learn, willing to, like, I had no idea what manufacturing contexts were like. So that's been a huge learning curve for me. But I know that I'm there because there's something that I can learn from the people who are there. And so, yeah, that I would say also religion has the ability to undermine how you're perceived in certain contexts or affiliation with a religious tradition. And you have, and that's for me, I don't have a lot of the other prejudgments that I'm a white woman in the United States. I'm part of a majority religious tradition in the United States. And I still walk into these circumstances and it doesn't make any sense why I'm there in bringing those identities to the table. So that's just a slice of my experience. And I'm sure that experience is even more challenging for others. But yeah, it's been quite the ride so far. And I only anticipate it to be a ride more in the future.
Thank you so much. Yeah, for speaking to that and your experience. I, as a professional Emory enthusiast myself, right? My ears just perk up when you talk about this discussion of critical thinking as a skill set, and also the value of your liberal arts education, right? That you have touched on these other ways, even beyond Emory, and that you bring that into your work and how you engage. It's I don't know. I think it's a beautiful selling point of Emory's community, but Isam, I want to build off of Barrett's points and think about, you are certainly an alumni leader who engages with especially our Muslim community at Emory, and the continuum of that Emory experience, right? Having been a student yourself and now a campus leader. I'm curious, and speaking to some of what Barrett has shared, and how your experience, of course, with IRC, but more broadly with Emory, and how you might have had a similar experience in engaging with your faith communities or other faith communities around Atlanta, and bringing that critical thinking and that wholeness, right? Because again, like you also are an academic and career public health professional. So can you speak to that a little bit, building off of Barrett?
So it is because of our peers on the Interreligious Council that we develop these skill sets, of difficult conversations and critical thinking, and being able to grow in our own understanding of faith tradition. So if any of us was missing from the table, we would not have the same experiences. So we first have to acknowledge that, and acknowledgement goes a long way, especially when you're outside of your comfort zones, like the Emory bubble, where we're so insulated. Because once you learn those skill sets, even if you are in a secular work environment and you work with people belonging to different religious, spiritual, and philosophical traditions, acknowledgement goes a long way. So for a Jewish colleague, if it's a Friday afternoon, saying Shabbat Shalom is just a very basic courteous acknowledgement, but that acknowledge the humanity in the other. Or someone saying, hey, Sam, it's Friday afternoon, hope you have a good prayer service, or on Sunday, acknowledging, a Christian colleague that, listen, have a very blessed day and a very blessed service. So that acknowledgement piece is certainly very human and very important. And often we get so busy in our different tracks of life, professionally and personally, and all the commitments that we have, that sometimes you forget these basic acknowledgements. And we always have to remind ourselves to acknowledge, right? Ngawang, when we were on the pre-call, asked me, hey, it's Eid, so are you wearing traditional clothes, or are you, out and about? And it was just a very thoughtful way of acknowledging, a momentous occasion on the Islamic calendar. So that certainly is one facet of it, which is acknowledgement, and acknowledgement goes a really long way. Now, one other side of it that I will touch on is that when we go out into beyond the Emory bubble and into the world, often people just settle on commonalities and how we do things similarly. When we start doing these panel formats, it starts getting it starts feeling the same over and over and over again, because religious values and spirituality all have common elements that those of us who are practitioners of spirituality or religious traditions can easily relate to when we are in conversation. So there's always that itching, okay, can we get beyond this commonality? Can we really try to be our authentic selves, something that Emory has been committed to, for some time now. If I really want to know you, I also want to understand, how we're different, and how can I respect that difference if I understand it better. And I will make an effort to understand that better. Those sets of difficult conversations, critical thinking, all come into play when we go out into the real world, because we get beyond that safe space and go into the authentic space. And I think that journey is also very important.
Isam, I really appreciate you speaking to that. I can say personally, the most beautiful thing to me about my experience with IRC, and certainly at Emory, was the celebration of difference and the learning of difference, that we don't seek to equate each other's experience, but we can recognize our similarities and recognize how we can come together, but that we come together in this diverse and really beautiful, multifaceted way. So thank you for speaking to that. I know we are approaching time here. And Marche, if you would allow me, I'd love to just finish very briefly. If you could just share really quickly one special moment from your experience at Emory related to IRC. I'll if you allow me, I'll start very quickly. Mine was just being able to, and this happened, of course, across many conversations, but being able to understand that we encounter the divine in many different ways. But that meant to me that I learned that more and more of the world is divine to people and those around me. And if I can treat it as such, there is so much more appreciation for the natural world around me, for those that I have the capacity to love around me. And I certainly take that from Emory and from my experiences at IRC. So Ngawang, would you please share yours?
Of course, it's a little bit challenging to pick the one experiences, but what comes up in my mind all the time is that being in an IRC, I got many brothers and sisters. When I say brothers and sisters, not just literally, I feel somewhat like I have brothers and sisters in different religious community. One experience that I had is that when we were on a spring break tour in New York, I got to spend share room with one of my Islam brother. And then we got to, I had an experience of, traveling with them in metros. And then the amazing experience that I had at New York is that we were able to, we visited the ground zero there. And then we, have a joint prayer sessions there. So those sort of experience, since I left Emory, I miss those experiences. And then there's an amazing photo that I share on my Facebook with permission from my Islam sister. So she was hugging on my neck. As you know, there's a, but she was, hugging me on my, from behind. So that sort of experience, I always remember, and then that will remain in my mind all the time. Yeah.
Thank you so much. If we have just a second, Barrett, would you share yours?
Well, I was thinking about that same trip to New York. That was also incredibly impactful for me, but a special memory I have, when I was at Emory, I helped start an Easter dinner that was kind of co-organized by a bunch of the different Christian communities on campus. And I like actively advertised it to my IRC sisters and brothers who are of other religious traditions. And I was like, we'd love to have you. We won't have kosher food, but it won't be certified kosher, just really invited people to come and to participate and be able to share in a celebration if that was, if they were open to that as part of the way they held their faith. And that was a huge gift that I definitely wouldn't have done that if I had been not a part of IRC and seen, we can share celebrations and be able to recognize how these moments of really true kind of gifts that we're encountering in our own tradition can actually gift others who may not participate in that same tradition, but bring a sense of community in. And I think that was possible really because of IRC and bringing all sorts of folks to the table, and that's something I really love, and a memory that I'll hold dearly. One other thing I have thinking on that is my freshman year was able to plant a living mandala that was it's a little tiny tree outside of Cannon Chapel that every time I'm on the Emory campus, I walk by and I can say, this is something that for me was really an active spiritual participation that I would never have had the opportunity to, and was facilitated by my encounters with particularly my Buddhist sisters and brothers on the IRC. So
thank you so much, Barrett. And Isam, would you close this out?
So both of them were thinking about the New York trip, and I was going to talk about the spring break trips, on how we take the IRC experience and apply it in real world settings. It's really an eye-opening experience. So that's a critical part of it. And to Barrett's point about the living mandala, our Buddhist chaplain, the Venerable Priya, has recently helped revitalize that living mandala with some new planting, and me and several of my office colleagues got to participate in it. So Barrett, when you come to Atlanta, definitely go by it, and that little tree is still there. What I will say is that the thing that I will remember is walking into that room and then leaving all the other concerns behind, and enjoying the collaborative learning with peers. That is something that stays with me and is consistent throughout the years of IRC.
Thank you so much, Isam, and Barrett and Ngawang. Really, really appreciate your participation. Marche, I apologize for going over, but I'll pass things back.
No worries at all. Thank you all again for joining us. This was an incredible conversation, just hearing all of you speak about IRC being a family and the way that you celebrate each other's traditions, and even Isam talking about meeting outside of a comfortable space, but an authentic space. I really appreciate it, and I'm sure our viewers appreciate it, and anyone who watches this recording will also find lots of information there. So thank you all for making time to be present for this conversation. And for anyone watching, we will have this recording available to you very soon. And again, everyone have a wonderful rest of your day. Good night. Thank you for spending so much time and staying up so late with us. And we will end our recording here. Thank you all again.